Welcome to NIL4U. I'm Rob Finkelstein, founder and CEO of Alumni Direct, and we created a platform where alumni can network and connect with their fellow alumni. And this show is all about NIL education. I'm so excited every week to do this show with our favorite coach, Trent Clark.
Hey, Rob, how are you doing now? It's great to be a part of another NIL4U. I am so excited to join this show as we bring in Sivonnia DeBarros, an attorney in the NIL space for entrepreneurs, leading these one percenters and all these crazy things called business. Sivonnia, how are you doing?
Hello. I am doing well. How are you guys?
Well, I am not in a blizzard and you are. So I feel like, I'm doing all right. You may be hunkered down for the weekend in North Chicagoland. Is that accurate?
It's probably quite accurate.
Yeah, it is crazy out. Well, we made it to Friday and I think they're calling for, I don't know, over 10 inches of snow in the Midwest. So it's going to be a little bit bonkers, but thrilled to have Sivonnia with us. Just really quicker, Sivonnia is known as the protector of athletes, a first-generation lawyer and law business owner, women in business, former track and field Division I college athlete. I mean, a graduate of Chicago Kent College of Law. I mean, so exciting about you having the background in sports, criminal justice, political science from South Florida. So we got a bull on board, which is always awesome. And then, now you've done all these things in sports around everything that's going on with people that are moving very quickly. And now you've wrangled that into working a lot with entrepreneurs, fast movers, NFL, soccer, NBA G League, pro table tennis, which is awesome. All sorts of different agreements that people are doing with national brands and media. Tell us a little bit about when you were a kid, Sivonnia. Is this like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be an athlete, and then I'm gonna be the female Jerry Maguire. And like, did you want to be an agent? Did you want to be representing attorney? What did you really want to do?
Yeah. So I've always wanted to be a lawyer before I really knew what a lawyer was. And it's funny because I got into a full-fledged career conversation with a young lady last night on the flight back home to Chicago. And she asked me the same question, like, what made you want to become an attorney? But it was something that my heart just always desired. Before like I said, I had a full recollection of what it meant. But being an athlete was not something I wanted to do. It happened because my mom got our butts out of the house, put us in sports so we can learn how to socialize, create leadership skills and all those types of things. I mean, I don't know if that's what she did it for, but that's pretty much what happened because of it.
Yeah.
But funny story about me, I hated getting dirty. So I didn't really want to play any sport before I was going to get dirty.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so this is pretty cool, Savannah, because like a lot of people are like, hey, female, you always hear the tomboy at it, like, but you're a girl, you're a princess.
I'm a
And
girl. I'm a girl's girl. I had my tomboyish phase, but it was
yeah,
more so like a prissy tomboy phase.
yeah. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Now, what's really cool is you're an accredited and acclaimed published author. You've done a lot here where, what are you sporting about? Great. You're a creator of a proprietary program called Have Your SAE, which is awesome, designed with the college athletes in mind. New Amazon bestselling book coming out that's out, Athletes Making Moves, that was released in 21. I mean, you're consistently bringing content and is this your primary medium, is the books, or where are you leaning into for this?
Yeah, my primary support is the law. So that's what I typically lead with. And I want to say typically, that's what I lead with. So when people typically talk to me about name, image, and likeness, for example, I am approaching it from a legal landscape. So that's my bread and butter. That's what I've always done. And I use my own creativity to find different ways to pivot where it makes sense to also fulfill my purpose, which equally includes educating and supporting athletes who did not have a voice, right? Campaigning for them. So yeah, that's the main thing, is the law.
And I know also that you talk about you have that every year. You've got an NIL conference. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the annual conference is a sub brand of our student athlete brand called Athletes Making Moves. And the event is called NIL Combine. The purpose behind creating this community of athletes is for them to recognize that there's so many different ways that people are truly making moves in whatever industry, whatever city, whatever zip code. And you should be proud of what you're accomplishing with your own name, image, and likeness. The idea behind NIL Combine is to bring experts from all walks of life, from all different types of industries, to break down what NIL, name, image, and likeness, truly means for student athletes and those who serve them. When name, image, and likeness came to the forefront, a lot of you guys saw it, a lot of people popping up, a ton of businesses that don't make any damn sense. People saying that they can do certain things that they can't do. And we're still seeing issues of students engaging into bad deals, things that I've always known would happen without the right support and education, which is also the motivation behind creating a space where people can get the education that they need, but also begin to build a portfolio of relationships and contacts that they can call on in, hey, all right, I got this deal coming down the line, but I need a financial advisor. Do you know one? Okay, well, I met several people at the event. Well, I need to speak with someone about marketing. I have no idea how to set up my social media or how to revamp my social media. And there's so many different lessons around the subject at large. I just want people to understand that it's more than what we think and what we've been told. There's so many different ways that we can maximize, pivot, leverage, and monetize one's name, image, and likeness without it also being attached to sports. So
yeah, I love this. I actually spoke with you, and I was on one of your early calls as you were looking for experts because of our Aim for NIL education platform, where we speak and educate people with online learning. And primarily, Sivonnia, you'll appreciate, we really try to get the kids early working with high school athletes and their parents, even if their state's not approved yet. Let's get educated before this whole thing starts. There's enough to learn at college. As you remember, as a young athlete going to the South Florida Bulls, you're thinking like, there's a lot coming on. How much the cadence of practice, classes, where's everything at? Tampa's got a pretty sizable campus there. And so, now all of a sudden you try to figure out, oh, I'm going to need another 20 hours to navigate this NIL thing. That seems crazy. So getting out in front of it seems really good. So love the idea of the combine, and I think we're seeing more and more camps come up. Let's get. I love having Sivonnia on, because let's get into a little bit of some of these these headlines. I mean, this is a lot going on in the NIL space as usual, and I think this is the first university now that we've seen has seen infractions, and there's going to be some sort of suspension for NIL violations. And there may be more, Sivonnia, you may know about this, but it seems like a pretty high-level program with Florida State and their offensive coordinator, Alex Atkins, being suspended for 3 games because of NIL violations. Rob, have you seen other schools that face this?
I think it's coming up. They talked about it at University of Miami with the Cavender twins. That was a big one. And I think everything's different. They said this is the stiffest penalty so far. It's 3 games. Apparently, the coach took a player or took a booster to meet a player that wasn't part of the program, and they were trying to get him to come to Florida State, and that's what the deal was. But yeah, it's something I could see. And I guess, Sivonnia, from a legal standpoint, Yeah, obviously this is a big issue. And I mean, what are you seeing from things like this?
I mean, I'm not surprised. It's something I've already have told people and been talking about for the last 3 years. I knew that this was going to happen, right? A lot of kids immediately when states enacted NIL rules, kids were transferring. Um, Prime example, Jaden Rashada. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, but Jaden was in a situation where I think had already promised Miami he was going to play there, and you know, UF collective of somebody promised him 1 point something million dollars. And I remember someone saying to me, "Oh, well, the schools can pay the student athletes over $1 million." I'm like, schools can't pay student athletes that. It is in the state statute, but people don't listen. They think they know what they know. At the end of the day, NIL statutes all across this nation, if your state has one on the books, all of them pretty much say the same thing. Some of them have their nuances, but at the end of the day, you cannot promise a student athlete monetary gain based on their athletic performance and ability to, and pay them to come to that school to play. Like, it is prohibited. It's within the statute, but people don't want to take the time to read those rules. I also felt that there was going to be a huge issue around coaching, the pressure of having to pull in the best athlete for their teams. How can I get that? Okay, well, if my school has, or my state has NIL on the books and another state doesn't, but this kid is an amazing player, well, what do you think people are going to do? They're going to utilize the fact that they have name, image, and likeness. They're going to utilize what the opportunities around NIL could be for that student athlete. And how does that factor in behind closed doors, what they're promising the student, to come to the school? We don't know a lot of stuff that's happening behind, closed doors or before the ink dries on their documents. We only see the after, impact of what is happening. So it doesn't surprise me, but one bit of advice that I will continue to say to student athletes and even their parents or whoever supports them is, you can make all the money in the world, or someone can promise you all the money in the world, right? But how does that get you further to or closer to your goals if what you're doing in that moment is a complete violation, and it's a violation that could disrupt and interrupt everything that you want in that particular time and space, right? And so it reminds me of the statement from the elders: what you do in the dark comes to the light. Money is great, and it's a great tool to have to help you to fulfill your goals and live out your purpose and all of that. It is good. It can help you do a lot of things, accomplish a lot of things. But if it's going to threaten what you are trying to accomplish in the now to get to your future, then you have to make better decisions. And I would never make a decision based on desperation right now, that could completely throw everything out of the window.
Yeah.
We shouldn't do that.
Well, I love this. I love this new challenge of, Clemson kind of has led the way as the collective receiving almost $4 million, distributing $2.4 million of that money already, an average of $37,000 per athlete. As we know, Sivonnia, maybe most people don't, is that it's not equally distributed amongst all the college athletes at Clemson. That may be an average of per athlete, but my estimate is probably 20% of the athletes on campus probably took the lion's share of that money. Would you agree with that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know enough about it to agree with it, but and this is another problem I have in the NIL space with the collectives. There have been a lot of collectives to pop up. There's been a lot of money that's been reported about who's paying what collective is paying, what player or whatnot, but we have no idea how they're being managed. We have no idea what the oversight is. We have no idea how this factors into NCAA regulations. But it's possible what you said. Yeah, there could be only the top percentage of athletes, if they're part of these particular collectives, yeah, they might be the only ones who are getting checks cut. But it doesn't mean that athletes who see themselves in the lower tier or in the lower percentage, it doesn't mean that they don't have an opportunity to go out there and pitch for their own deals, right?
Yeah, I have an interest in this, Rob, because Tiger Impact, which is the operating collective there, collecting nearly $4 million, is currently operating as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And they have stopped signing athletes to any deals in 2023. And they're saying heading into 24, the 110 Society is becoming the official NIL partner of Clemson. I don't know if these folks are renaming it, but clearly, Rob, what's your thought of that? And then I want to hear Sivonnia's legal, because we've heard a lot about the 501c3.
Yeah, I think that there's this a lot of these collectives were trying to get away with it, and I think there's been it's interesting because some schools have more than one collective. So one of it might be parents and other family members. Another one could be these different boosters. But I think the IRS started cracking down on it. I think, and just finding that they can't do that, and it's interesting the way they're trying to play it off. And I mean, I guess and that will come into play, obviously, if they can't do that, and it starts changing the way the money comes flowing through here, and maybe they've got less money that's able to go out. So again, Sivonnia, what's your thoughts from a legal perspective?
That's a great statement, Rob. And I don't think a lot of people realize, even student athletes who are taking NIL deals, if you've created a business entity starting January 1st of this year, because now we're past that date, right? There's something that's called the Corporation Transparency Act, Corporation Transparency Act. So they've been referring to it as CTA. I try to stay away from that because sometimes CTA refers to the call to action.
Yeah.
But you have to, if you are a new company starting at January 1st, 2024, you have to file a beneficiary notice. I can't remember the type of the document, but you have to basically show the federal government who is the owner, the beneficiaries of the company that you have. And so it is basically, the way it operates is to keep people from creating these sham companies, right? Just trying to move money around, money laundering and things. And so to your point, Rob, yeah, if you are creating a collective because you know the opportunity for millions of dollars to come through your pockets to pay student athletes, you mean to tell me that people ain't gonna get any money from that? People have been making money off of student athletes for years. So now that they really have the opportunity to make money in the open, people are going to make sure that they get paid as well. And I can definitely see the federal government stepping in to crack down on companies who are probably acting like they don't have any income, forcing their hands to show exactly what is happening inside of the company. But if they have a 401c3, you can make money in a nonprofit as well. The whole goal of that is you just can't show that you had revenue on the books at the end of the year, but it doesn't mean that the company is not generating millions of dollars.
Yeah, and I think that I do believe, and I do not think the $4 million is the highest collective earnings. I've heard of bigger numbers, but my guess is that a lot easier to raise capital if asking business owners like myself and Sivonnia and Rob that we have tax write-offs, and as alum of maybe that university, we're knowing that our contribution is 100% deductible if that were to be true. And that's going to be debated, I'm sure, in the tax code, like coming up this year, because this is the first year. But I'm sure they raise more capital because of that.
Yeah, I would love to go and pull up this business registration with the 501c3, because I'm also curious to know in what category have they filed, to have these tax exemptions as a 501c3. I don't see any educational benefit that they're utilizing. I have not seen anything as it relates to scholarships that they will be providing to student athletes. Everything seems to be very money oriented and driven, which is a traditional for-profit company.
Yeah, it is interesting because there's a lot of rule and regulation around 501c3. Having been on a sort of nonprofit boards, that is significant, the amount to get that approved. And I'll tell you the other thing in my world, I have seen a lot of mishandling of 501c3s. Probably another legal area that people get into trouble. But let's move on to this NIL store launches Nebraska's Keisei Tamanaga, right? The merchandise.
I think
Yeah,
good job,
right? They
I think it might be Kaisei.
Kaisai? Yeah, I think you're right. But
yeah.
I think I do have Tamanaga mania. So I think, now I'm into it now. I like Japanese lettering on the back of his uniform. Now, this is interesting to me because they've just upset number 1 Purdue, huge win for Nebraska. The place is going crazy. This is I believe he's a Japanese-born student, and I'm not sure of that. If he has U.S. He has
Nationality.
U.S. nationality.
Yeah.
Because if he has a citizenship, he can receive the NIL. If not, none of the merchandise sold on the U.S. Soil could be used for that merchandise. He would have to make his money in Japan or outside the United States for that. So it's a pretty big one. And he plays for the Japanese Olympic team. So super excited because this kid's going to be in Paris next summer, and super excited about what's going on. But I love Tamanaga mania, but I don't know if these shirts are ever going to yield anything for Kaisei.
I don't either. So I'm not an immigration attorney, guys, but this has also been a point of conversation in the NIL space too, around equity for student athletes who have come to this country for a better education, for to create financial sustainability, have opportunities that maybe their parents didn't have in their home country. So like you, I don't know if Mr. Tamanaga is an American, whether he retained nationality here, if he was he born in Japan or was he born here?
We're not sure.
It doesn't state it. It doesn't state.
Okay.
The only thing it does state is that he is playing for the Japanese national team and helped them qualify for the Olympics.
So if he's playing for Japanese, he might be a Japanese citizen, because you don't typically play for a country without being one of their citizens.
Yeah, I think that's historically true, right? I think it's dual citizenship, possibly, right?
It could be, or sometimes remember, like you got, like when they did the World Baseball Classic, they had a lot of guys that are Americans, but their families were from the different countries.
Oh, I got you. Their ethnicity.
So their ethnicity. Yeah. So I mean, it could be that maybe his grandparents or his parents are from there. Maybe he did grow up in the U.S. and has citizenship, but he's able to play for their team because of his family.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, you're right. It now it's reminding me of one of my former MLS athletes who played for Haiti's national team, but he's American. So we don't know what Tamanaga's situation is here in the States, but technically, because immigration law is very old, has not been modified from what I believe in quite a while. Foreign student athletes who are here on a student visa also have to be careful in how they utilize name, image, and likeness, because it could threaten their visa. Now, that's as far as I'm going to go into it, because I don't want to talk about something I'm not technically, well versed in. But we want to make sure that when we're serving student athletes, especially if there's a problem around nationality, that we're not putting them in a position that could jeopardize everything that they've worked for, i.e. their visa, their permission to be here to get an education. But we also have to look at the consequences it might have on their financial aid or scholarship, but yeah, I mean, if he's able to monetize this, that's dope. That's dope. I really hope that that it's all good, like everything pans out.
Yeah, we had a story on our last show about there was a player from overseas, and what he did is he set up a 501c3 and gave back to his country, to his town. He set up like a soccer field for people to play and all that. So there's ways to do that. So this next story here, Michigan's national championship. Donovan Edwards, people saw score a couple of touchdowns, and he parlayed that into there's a new trading card series from Leaf. That had Harbaugh and some of the other players as well. It's kind of interesting. He's not going to get the kind of payback that Arch Manning got, right, Trent?
I don't think so, but I got to tell you, this kid's on fire right now. I mean, he had a huge game last year in the Big Ten championship and against Ohio State, and it was kind of a quiet season for him. And he just has an amazing 2 touchdowns on the first 2 carries. And I was telling my son, hey, let's just give him the ball and see if he scores on every time he touches, right? Like, so until they stop him, I was like, Harbaugh, please just hand the ball to Edwards, right? So, but the other thing that I read about Donovan was he was selected as the Raising Cane's player of the game. So they threw an after party at Raising Cane's where Edwards was the feature of the Raising Cane's party, and it was a one-off NIL deal, and it sounds like awesome. I mean, I love Cane's, so I was like, hey man, I would have liked an invite first of all, so I'm a little upset with Donovan right now, but otherwise I just think that is so cool. So this kid right now really taking advantage of some opportunities, and he has 7 or 8 other deals. He's a regular in the NIL space, and I'm sure the Michigan Collective that does very well. I'm sure they've done some things with him to open up some options and opportunities. Sivonnia, what are you thinking about? We've seen this in the final games, from the young lady at LSU to when we see these big TV championship, big ratings, and man, it's like rocket fuel. What have you seen in this?
I mean, this Edward Donovan, I try to stay up on my NIL stuff, but y'all listen, when I'm deep in the law, my head is down working. But what I can say about this is, one, I love the students and or whoever's supporting them with their media attention by leveraging the attention that they've garnered from these games or whatever is happening around their own particular personal brands. So Angel Reese, like, she's blown up majorly.
Yes.
Flau'jae Johnson has blown up, and it's you could get some kind of fanfare around doing a great job, having a great game, but it's the student athletes who really take the next step to pivot or to go hard on something that they believe in. Those are the athletes that tend to stand out and shock everybody, but also those are the athletes who began to create a true foundation of what I would say is legacy for them, something that is not so rooted into you hoping that you go pro. Well, you're already going pro. You're already creating the life that you want for yourself, and removing the desperation of, I have to sacrifice my entire body or, years of doing something, that takes me away from those that I love. Like, you are writing literally your own check. So I love this. And I love that he launched his trading cards. I think it's brilliant. And I would advise any student athlete who has the ability to do something, especially if you're already doing something that you like, capitalize on it. Yeah. You have the lights now. People are looking at you. They're watching you. And they're obviously going to want to know more. They're going to want to look and take a deeper dive into who you are. Maximize that, leverage it, and make sure that you have the opportunity to monetize it while it's happening.
Yeah, I think I love that pro tip of the day right there, which is positioning yourself. Donovan is going to be a senior. Blake Corum's going to move on to the NFL. Blake Corum's done tons of NIL for good, giving away, I think, over 300 turkeys at Thanksgiving. He continues to be a beacon of light for NIL. And that has shined tons of light on University of Michigan. Not that they needed it after a national championship and Donovan's success, but Donovan going into his senior year, he's being deemed the heir apparent of the running game at Michigan, which has always been significant. And now with Raising Cane's, this NFT and trading card with New Leaf, I mean, this guy's positioned for rocket fuel for a fabulous season and a senior year. And Sivonnia, you know what I like about this is I think a lot of those kids might have chosen the pro NFL draft years ago because I had one good game, and we've seen a lot of kids do that. And it doesn't work out very well, a very shortened career because they lack the experience. Now he's got some capital contributions. He's got some runway to continue to garner more skill at the position and be that much more ready for the NFL, hopefully. I mean, we all risk injury, and we get that. But, man, I think it's pretty exciting for where Donovan's at today.
It's very exciting. And listen, I don't want people to say that I'm against pro sports because I'm not against it. I just don't like the reason why people choose to go that route. Yeah, it might be a long life dream or desire to do it, but let's be real. A lot of students, especially before NIL, their whole purpose of going pro is because they wanted to change their family's financial situation. And most of the time, they still didn't do it, right?
Yeah.
They still got themselves not only deeper into shit, excuse my language, but it created catastrophic mental health problems, so I love the fact, with Donovan, it already seems like this kid has his heart is in the right place. It already seems like he has that balance, which is great. I call those kind of, unicorn students when you really have a well-balanced character. You know how to give back. You are, determined with your own craft. He is innovative, right? I think it could serve him very well if he went pro, because now your hopes and your dreams and everything is not just predicated upon you being this pro athlete, and then here's the stress and the necessity to work one day past game day because you're so worried about paying the next bill. I think that he would definitely be a great athlete, whether he decides to go pro or if he decides to just say, hey, I'm just going to live off or pivot and stack the money that I've already, what's the word I'm looking for? Compound the investments and the money that I've already made from NIL. That's up to him. Like you're literally, you can do whatever you want to do.
Love it. Rob, what do you think of this next area?
Yeah, so our last story here, we want to talk about the NCAA just approved a new NIL agent portal, which is for service providers. And I guess it's been voted and approved. And I guess after August 1st is when they start talking about implementation. So it'll happen sometime. And this is interesting because you're talking about it could be agents, it could be attorneys, it could be it's giving the athletes an opportunity to kind of look online and pick out the people they want. And I think they're implementing it to try to cut back on some of the issues that are out there. I think some of the, I guess we'll call them shady agents or whatever it might be, or just or people that are service providers that are say they're offering something that are not. But this was interesting, and I thought it was appropriate looking at this because I really wanted to get Sivonnia's her thoughts on just getting into this, because I'm sure whether it's agents or attorneys, this is going to open up a big thing for people involved in NIL.
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear that too, Sivonnia. And the two things that really stuck out in this article for me were kind of negative, right? The first one was portal. Man, really, you wanted to call it a portal? Like that really hasn't been synonymous with smoothness. I don't like, hey, we got a new NIL portal. And so now, and then the other thing I didn't like is that this new NCAA sponsored portal is voluntary. No, I mean, no one has to do it, and I appreciate that. But back to, and Sivonnia touched on this really early in our discussion. And there's been some shady actors and conductors out there, and it's a voluntary deal. This is, anyone can put their name up on this list. It doesn't look like a level of vetting in any way. So I don't know what they hope to accomplish, and I pray that it doesn't create another muckety muck portal of fodder for the media that isn't working out for this organization and the institutions and the athletes, most importantly. Again, Sivonnia, what's your thought?
Well, my thought is I think the NCAA might just kind of still taking a hands-off approach a little bit, but still doing enough to say that it's doing enough, right? To have some kind of oversight over people. I don't know if you guys remember the story about Gervin Dexter, athlete from Florida, when, he signed an NIL deal in his senior year of high school. He went pro, and a year after going pro, he's realizing he has to pay this company 15% of his NFL earnings. The company, he signed this NIL deal promising to do a whole list of things, which also included signing and autographs. I can't remember how many autographs. It was a lot. Showing up to appearances, all kinds of things. So he definitely did the work that he was paid, but this company also took capital from him on the back end, which looks like a predatory loan. So I'm thinking, is this the NCAA's way of creating an outlet for companies and individuals who say that they are representing or serving athletes to have some kind of oversight, but also who's checking on the oversight, who's doing the oversight. So Gervin Dexter's lawyers out in Florida did file a complaint. I pulled that complaint up. I did a whole webinar series on it. And some of the claims were that there were no warnings to the student athlete about, this could impact your eligibility or your NIL as a student athlete. I don't think that he was represented by an agent or whoever proposed the document to him. I don't think they were a licensed agent. So it's so many issues that are going to happen. And honestly, that I think might happen. I think this might have to be something that comes from the state, if not the federal level. I don't think the federal level will tap into that because every state has its own way of how it manages and regulates, for instance, lawyers, doctors. There are already rules on the books for agents. So it might be something that has to go hand in hand with NIL statutes that needs to be applied in every state if there's NIL, so that student athletes not only have a way to look up other professionals and have opportunities. Because right now, if people are utilizing one professional, what do you think they're, who is your friend going to refer? The one person that they're utilizing. And so they have no idea all these other people who are out here who can serve them and maybe have the ability to serve them at a much higher level and a more efficient level. So I think there's good in it. But again, I also believe that there may be a lot of bad that happens before everything gets rectified.
Yeah. As I look at the landscape, there is a ton of concern over, Rob and I have been, blatantly aware of some pretty big red flags. At the NFL Combine last year, in their NIL breakout session, they talked about how much of fine print is in the NIL collective deals for athletes that are now on campus, and we're paying you $5,000 a month, but you miss a training table, you miss a class, you miss a film session, let alone a practice, illness or not. There's language that says, oh, you missed something, we no longer have to pay you your $5,000. And I mean, these kids, I don't think, are having their side of representation look over that agreement. And I see that. I've seen the young man who had a great car account, no one insured it. Then when the car was turned in, there was $35,000 in, correction that needed to be made, and maintenance and services, and a bumper that needed to be replaced. So it sounds like the dealership leveraged that for more work from the athlete, to pay off, that debt. I mean, you're just seeing some horror stories along the way. Sivonnia, what should athletes be thinking about when an opportunity presents itself?
The biggest thing they should be thinking about is this in full alignment, not with who you are right now, but with who you want to be? Where you see yourself in 5 years, if you can even think that far. Right? But what you all of us at some point, okay, let's make it shorter. 1 year, right? That's short enough for us to determine, where do I want to be at least in 1 year? And is this in alignment in a way that it will get me to that place? A lot of kids, even at the college level, and it's sad, but a lot of kids are not necessarily, I don't think, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think some kids might be thinking, I got to do this for fill in the blank, right? You're not doing it for you. But if we can change that thought process and do what we need to do for us, then we have the ability to do what we want to do for other people, right? And so it's that put on your mask first type of conversation. And ask somebody, don't automatically go and sign something. Don't go to your uncle or your parent and ask them to read a contract for you and see if it's okay. They don't know. It might be written in English, but it don't mean you can read it. It don't mean it doesn't mean that you understand the language and how it impacts you. And for God's sake, if you're gonna scroll to the page where the dollar amount is listed, make sure that you really understand what you're giving up. Because when you're obligated to someone, it is harder sometimes to say that you didn't understand something when you've signed it. So make sure you fully understand, make sure you fully vet whoever's behind the deal that they say that they're giving to you. Read it again, and take it to an expert to help you fully recognize what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think it's, that's part of our this is, our show is all about education. It's a big part of it. I mean, we talk about stories, but it's just getting people like Sivonnia on. And I think it's great advice to just, I think we're all guilty of, reading over things and like, oh, I'm not going to get it if I don't sign it. But these examples that we brought up here are, could be pretty big issues. Like you said, that one guy with, he's going to be paying the rest of his life, through the NFL. It's not right. So definitely
25 years.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's really crazy. So definitely seek out expert advice. That's a very important lesson here.
And I'm sorry. I'll add this, Trent. I think the biggest reason why a lot of athletes get caught up, and athletes across any type of sport genre, is because they don't recognize themselves as a brand, and they don't recognize their own potential value. A lot of times they don't even know that these brands need them more than they need the brand. Like, the brand is going to make money and get noticed because of you. So if you can flip that switch, that automatically is leverage. So,
yeah, I think that's really important. And most kids do not understand that you are in a position of some leverage. They could go find somebody else, but they could also go burn somebody else. So think hard about where you want to position yourself, and realize you are sitting in a position with some leverage. They did come to you, want to work with you, so those are all good things. What would you single piece of advice, and maybe two-part question here, Sivonnia, is one is, what is the thing that's just really rearing its head regularly in your world in this NIL space? And then two, small college kid, limited resources. what would you recommend them from a legal standpoint to be just really tightened up on opportunities? These are the kids who are probably not likely to make 40, 150,000, but they are likely to make 1,000 a month and have 4 deals worth $250 a month and make $12,000 and have, that's a real part-time job. That's really good income to be around what you're doing. And we certainly promote that for kids. What would you tell those athletes on those two things?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I see across the board, whether you identify as an athlete or not, is lack of brand protection. And a lot of times that just goes back to the whole idea of value and how you perceive or don't perceive your own value. So if you are in a position where you are literally rising, the cream rising to the top, you should be looking at what your brand is and reaching out to people in different industries like marketing and branding and PR and attorneys, financial strategists, not all at the same time, but take it a step at a time to one, define what your true brand is, and then taking steps to safeguard your brand. So using legal strategies to protect your brand. So once you start putting stuff out there, you start selling certain things, or you are signing signatures, you are a walking business, you are a walking brand. You ever heard people say, I don't have a business, man, I'm a businessman? Like that's how we have to start seeing ourselves as walking businesses. And for student athletes who are not making 20,000 or 500 or a million or more, you're still a business too. And I want them to realize it's those athletes who are going to become the CEOs and the CFOs of companies. It's those athletes who are going to be the first 8-figure entrepreneur in their family, right? So they are learning critical skills right now at this time. And the fact that they're being paid for it, they should celebrate it. It doesn't mean that just because you get paid $500 to do something that your worth is less than a student athlete that gets paid $1 million. Because the student athlete that gets paid $1 million can lose his million or her million in less than a year. But the fact that you keep going and you're building up this educational capacity and momentum and business acumen, you create something that is that has so much more value, where you're able to create and see your compound interest show up in 8 figures. And so I would do the same thing, is start thinking about, what is your value? What do you bring to the table? What is the brand that you have? Who can you get support from? Who can you go and get experience from? Network some more, and be willing to show up in full authenticity, be willing to show up eager to learn and determined, and go out there and do a damn good job. And it will definitely serve you. I can't hear you.
Okay, so first of all, amen, Sivonnia. I got permagrin over here because, I want everyone to know here on NIL4U, I did not pay Sivonnia to say this, right? I preach this from the top of the mountain, right? And so I want to know that Sivonnia's a guest of ours, not a paid guest to say what I tell, like what I ask her to say, right? So I was thrilled to hear that, Rob. It just gets me excited to hear, listen, there are tons of young men and women athletes who want to be Sivonnia DeBarros. Like they want to go to school. They want to use this stepping stone of athletics to go and help them get law school and then go get a good job and maybe own my own law firm and do this one day. And now you have the very woman who you admire and honor in your life. And she's telling you, like, this is a place for you to get value beyond the value that you ever thought you could. And you can start this at 19 years old. And it wasn't available to us when we were there, right? So, Rob, let's close it, but I want to close with that because it's pro tip right there, right? So let's end there. Yeah. But Rob, anything to add here? Because I'm in cloud 9 right now. I can start my weekend. Okay, that's how I can. I can start.
Yeah, no, I saw those wheels spinning when you were talking there, Sivonnia. Because Trent preaches that all the time. I mean, it's such a great thing for these athletes to just build that resume, so to speak. I mean, they're getting, if they do it correctly, they're getting great experience. They're branding, they're doing marketing, promoting themselves. I think, organizations, companies look to hire that. And it's, I talk about on my other show, which Sivonnia has been on as well, Athletes, Entrepreneurs, and Alumni Journey, where we talk about athletes transition out of sports. And I think these athletes that are taking advantage of that, it sets them up so great for the future. So another wonderful, great show. Sivonnia, thank you so much for being a part of this. She was very tired, so we're giving her gold.
I think you guys woke me up a little bit.
we got her fired up. We talked about that. We kind of lulled her to sleep a little bit in the beginning, but then we brought her back to life. So thank you so much, and definitely tune into NIL4U. You can find us on sportsepreneur.com. Where shows across all the different podcast networks. But this has been great. Trent, as always, I love doing this with you. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, just, as people know me, right? I have been to the top. I'm, 3-time World Series coach, right? And as I drive into that, I look back on those experiences, and the competition was one thing, but so many lessons were away from the actual game. And man, I think this just went into like hyper warp speed of learning that we didn't really get the opportunity at this age. So I'm super excited about what's next for this and for kids. And I'm also super excited that for all you young kids out there, high school kids and the parents, listen, Sivonnia DeBarros is available. She is an esquire and attorney. Like, you're having challenges and you've got opportunities, pick up the phone and call. Most attorneys will take a free quick consultation with you. You're not going to be on the drip and being charged right away, but you want to get educated, and there are lots of resources out there. And these phones are incredible. You've got resources at your fingertips. But when you hear someone like this, an accredited expert, know that it's not far away. Sivonnia, tell them where they can find you before we go.
Yes, guys. For the athlete stuff, you can find me at athletesmakingmoves.com. If you want to know more about NIL Combine, you can also find that on the website at athletesmakingmoves.com/NIL Combine. We haven't started promoting yet for 2024, but we will soon. So I would love to see you guys there. And if you want some legal support, you can reach me at sldebarros.com. You can look at some of the other things that we've done, hoping to revamp our website to just have more educational stuff about case studies so people can see themselves in the work that we do at the firm, but would love to support student athletes more.
Well, again, thanks again. And we look forward to seeing everybody next time. Take care.